Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. U.S. presidential candidates Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump clashed during Tuesday's high-stakes debate. Flight delays and cancellations in Kenya's main international airport as workers stage protests against an Indian company seeking to lease the facility. And a technology firm in the U.S. state of Virginia develops a rideshare app connecting drivers and passengers for long-distance travel. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. In Tuesday night's high-stakes U.S. presidential debate, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump repeatedly clashed on issues such as abortion, immigration, and foreign policy. VOA Steve Herman has more.
Standing 2 meters apart with no audience in the room, the two presidential nominees, who had never met before Tuesday night, had their first encounter. Hosted by ABC News and simulcast on other broadcast networks to tens of millions of likely American voters. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke to those voters as much as she responded to the attacks from former President Donald Trump, setting much of her own course following President Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race.
There's a renewed sense of optimism in this campaign and vigor, and I'll tell you what, Trump's people right now are spinning. They're already complaining about the refs. They're already talking about these things being rigged. How dare they fact check us?
Trump blamed Harris, whom he called a Marxist, for a surge in illegal migration into the United States. Trump, without evidence, also blamed Harris for Russia invading Ukraine and the war in Gaza.
4 years of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, you got two wars, both in the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine. And I thought Donald Trump did a really good job of highlighting the difference in the actual records. So Kamala Harris tonight was about words. I think Donald Trump was about running on a record of action.
For Trump, it was his 7th time on the presidential debate stage. For Harris, her first. She said the Republican nominee is unfit to return to the White House, and there's a consensus about that among world leaders, except for the autocrats, whom Trump admires.
Did Donald Trump articulate a single plan tonight to help the American people? I mean, besides his reiteration of his belief that we should build a wall with Mexico, I don't think he talked about one single plan.
Trump's surrogates in the spin room, such as Republican Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida, said Harris failed to articulate what she would do as president.
Kamala Harris, all she did was attack him. She didn't talk about the policies. She didn't talk about her differentiations between her and the Biden administration. When Afghanistan came up, what did she say? A lot of nothing.
Where were the calling out of Kamala Harris and all of her false statements tonight? All of the lies about her positions? Where were those fact checks? So I think it was a 3-on-1 debate, but as is usual, President Trump did a pretty good job debating 3-on-1.
Nearly a third of voters polled prior to the debate said they were familiar with Trump but needed to learn more about Harris. The debate flushed out a clear contrast between the two, according to a Democratic Party congressman from California, Ted Lieu.
Kamala Harris was presidential. Donald Trump was weird and incoherent.
Unless Trump and Harris debate again before Election Day, this may have been their best opportunity to try to sway the relatively small number of undecided voters in the 7 swing states expected to decide who will become the next president of the United States. Steve Herman, VOA News, Philadelphia.
For reaction on the debate, I'm joined live from Philadelphia by VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson. Hello, Catherine. What is the Republican and Democratic reaction to the debate?
Well, varied reaction from both sides of the aisle this morning in Philadelphia. What we're hearing from Republicans and some of conservative right-wing media is that the debate moderators were completely unfair in terms of fact-checking former President Trump instead of Vice President Kamala Harris. They're alleging in some circles that she was wearing earpieces that could allow her to have debate quotes fed into her. They're basically saying that she cheated her way into this win. Over on the Democratic side, though, completely different, obviously. A lot of excitement about how Kamala Harris was able to nail down President Trump, give him these debate traps about his rally size, about his perception, how world leaders around the world perceive him, and that he walked right into those traps and didn't debate her on policy. He did his, usual rally type style speeches where he rambles and doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So a lot of excitement on both sides of the aisle today about this debate.
Mm-hmm. And Catherine, what are voters in that swing state saying about the debate?
That's right. So we know that Kamala Harris holds a little bit of a national polling lead, couple of percentage points nationwide, but that's not what we look at here in the United States. They need to win the Electoral College 270 votes to be able to get the presidency. And it all comes down to states like Pennsylvania, where I'm standing right now, and those undecided voters in the swing states. Kamala Harris was trying to make the case to those undecided voters last night that she is going to fight for them, while Donald Trump is going to remain focused on his personal grievances. That's the case she's going to be making. And with 55 days left in the election, it's going to come right down to the wire.
And very quickly, Catherine, are voters in favor of a second debate?
I think both sides are going to be anxiously awaiting to see if there is a second debate. On the Democratic side, Kamala Harris definitely wants that to happen. She feels like she won last night, and a second debate will only benefit her. Donald Trump's camp, I think, is going to be very cautious about going into that one more time.
Right, Catherine. So thank you so much for your reporting. VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson, live for us from Philadelphia. Now, for analysis on the presidential debate, I'm joined live from Wynwood, Pennsylvania by Russell Stone, Professor Emeritus of Sociology at American University. Professor, what were the key takeaways from last night's debate from both candidates?
Well, it depends who you ask. Obviously, the Trump supporters and Republican supporters claim at best that he won, and at worst that it was a rigged debate. They point out that the moderators fact-checked him 2 or 3 times and did not fact-check Kamala Harris. The fact of the matter is there was very little to fact-check in Harris compared to Trump's presentation. If you ask Democrats and supporters of Kamala, they were delighted to see her stand up to him and essentially bait him into very angered and at times incoherent, repetitive, and untruthful reactions.
Do you think the voters would change their minds when they listened to the two, the perspective of the two presidential candidates? Does that change anything after that debate?
That's hard to know. The polls show very slight movement. The fact of the matter is that what is going to count in the long run is the 7 swing states that were mentioned by your reporter and by all analysts. And we don't yet have detailed enough reactions to know if undecided voters in the swing states have been affected by it.
And again, Russ, Kamala Harris has asked for a second debate. Previously, we know that former President Donald Trump asked for even 3 debates between the two of them. What's likely to change if they do get a chance for another debate?
What's likely to change is probably very little. It's an attempt to attract the swing voters. Based on the outcome of this debate, I would guess that Trump is going to try to avoid it, and Harris is going to press for it.
And what should both candidates now focus on? There may be another debate, maybe not, but what should be their focus between now and when we go to the ballot box?
The focus is on the small number of swing voters who can make a difference in the 7 swing states, of which the one in which I'm currently sitting, Pennsylvania, could end up being the key one.
And in terms of what came out of their debates, what did you think voters wanted to hear? Is it the economy that's a problem? Is it the immigration? Which one of them came out as the strong feature that Americans want fixed?
on the issues of all of the above, and you clearly highlighted the differences of opinion. But for most, it was political theater. It was seeing the performances of the two candidates.
Russ, many thanks for your perspective here. Russell Stone is Professor Emeritus of Sociology at American University. Now let's hear from people in Nigeria and South Africa on what they think about the candidates.
As an African, I feel the impact of American politics have so much significance on African politics. Well, for me, I feel the lady has come, and her prospects for Americans is different from what Trump has to offer. So I believe that she spoke more than Donald Trump in the whole process.
We can see the difference is clear from the one that has experience and the one that is yet to come in as a president. Donald Trump has been president of US before, and we can see some of the things he's debating on, or the things he's saying to us, and we can see and we can hear are the things he has achieved, and he wants to complete what he started from his first tenure.
I don't think there's actually a competition between those two, because, you know, Trump is a very patriotic person. When I say patriotic, I mean all Americans love him. He's taking a bullet for US, for crying out loud. So, I mean, the crowd will go with him, of course. So, I think there's no opposition to that.
Mr. Donald Trump has a passion. He's passionate about everything. Global teenager, entrepreneurial skilled people who wants to be employed in web business as the president of ours here in RSA. Yes, he got passion for all these things, but he got ego, of course.
I think it's time for change. A female leader, somebody that's going to be there for women, because Trump has revealed that he doesn't actually care about women that much. So yeah, we need change.
I don't think this world will respect a female president. Although I think that we do need that change. But women have a lot of emotions. They have a lot of ups and downs. Today she might decide this, and then tomorrow her mindset is on another level.
I don't follow politics. I don't know nothing about politics. Like the American president, I don't know nothing. So that's it.
Reaction from Nigeria and South Africa to the Kamala Harris and Donald Trump presidential debate. Now let's turn to a very dark day in U.S. history. It's been 23 years since the Al-Qaeda terrorist group attacked America on September 11, 2001, killing more than 3,000 people. On May 2nd, 2011, U.S. troops killed Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the attack. For more on this infamous day, I'm joined by VOA's Carla Babb, live at the Pentagon. Hello, Carla. Tell us how this day is being observed.
Well, hello, Esther. President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, all commemorated the 9/11 attack in New York this morning. In fact, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump shook hands ahead of this ceremony, putting politics aside to honor those who were killed in this horrific attack. The president now and Vice President Kamala Harris are in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. They are participating in a wreath-laying ceremony for Flight 93. That is the flight where passengers were able to fight back against the hijackers, and the plane went down in a field in Pennsylvania there. And then later, just a few hours from now, the president will come to the Pentagon for another wreath-laying ceremony. Earlier this morning here at the Pentagon, it was a very, very solemn moment. There was a moment of silence at 9:37 a.m. That is the exact moment when the plane hit the Pentagon. There was a time where every single name, 184 people died at the Pentagon that day in the attacks. They read out every single name. And what was striking to me is that even in that quiet, solemn moment, you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it during my hit right now when I'm talking to you, but every minute or so there is a plane that goes by from Ronald Reagan Airport. And this is a very, very loud area. And it was just a reminder that life has gone on in these 23 years, but our country remains forever changed, and especially for these families, they remain forever changed after this attack.
And Carla, what are you hearing from the Pentagon about where we are as a country on the campaign against terror?
Well, I asked the Pentagon press secretary, Major General Pat Ryder, about this yesterday at the Pentagon, and he says that the terror threat still remains, but the United States feels that they are poised to be able to strike terrorists in Afghanistan with airstrikes if needed. They are also helping their partners in Iraq and Syria fight the Islamic State, remnants of the Islamic State that are trying to resurge. But when you look at the data that is being spread by experts and analysts, they are concerned because they look at Iraq and Syria and they say that the pace of Islamic State attacks there, it's set to double this year from last year. And then they look at the situation in Afghanistan. FDD, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Bill Roggio, he says that Al-Qaeda now controls areas. They are part of the Taliban's government in Afghanistan. They have training camps in 12 of its provinces. And so he is raising red flags, saying that Al-Qaeda is growing. They are better off now than they were before 9/11, and the United States needs to remain vigilant.
And maybe in 20 seconds, Carla, what has been the most poignant part of this ceremony?
Well, one of the hardest things to see is when you see that moment where the flag is unfurled at the Pentagon and seeing reaction from the families. That is the place where the Pentagon was hit, and that is the moment where everyone here today, their lives were changed forever. And just seeing that reaction is gut-wrenching every time.
Right. Carla, many thanks for your reporting. VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb, live for us from U.S. military headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. Dozens of airport workers blew plastic trumpets Wednesday and chanted "Adani must go" as they went on strike at Kenya's main international airport in Nairobi, causing flight delays and cancellations. Kenya's largest aviation workers union says they are taking industrial action over a proposed deal for India's Adani Group to lease Jomo Kenyatta International Airport for 30 years. The aviation workers union, which represents airport workers, says the proposed agreement announced in July would lead to job losses and bring in non-Kenyan workers. Kenya's government says the airport is operating above capacity and needs modernizing, but that it is not for sale.
From 3:30, we've been sitting down there waiting. Nobody is coming out to tell us anything, to inform us anything. Either we should go, leave, look for a hotel or something. I have a little child here waiting hungrily. No one comes there. This is not good at all. They don't know when their flights are going to start in tomorrow or anything. They don't have any information. And she's supposed to be in school.
Our flight was at 6:45 a.m. We came here at 4 a.m. We've been waiting for 6 hours. I was literally sitting there just doing nothing, bored. And yeah, it's very poor.
Kenya's High Court on Monday blocked the Adani proposal in which the Indian company would build a new runway and upgrade the passenger terminal to allow time for a judicial review challenging the lease. Zoo officials say deadly animals, including snakes and crocodiles, have been washed into the community around a zoo in northeastern Nigeria. David Doyle has the details.
Floods in northeastern Nigeria have killed more than 80% of animals in a large zoo, the facility said on Tuesday. Deadly animals such as crocodiles and snakes have also been washed into the community, the Sanda Kyarimi Park Zoo in Borno State added. It urged residents to take precautions. The zoo, which housed an array of wildlife including lions, buffalo and ostriches, was submerged in floods that began when a dam overflowed following heavy rains. Thousands of people have been uprooted. This woman said her daughter is in hospital and that the only thing she has been left with is the clothes she is currently wearing. The disaster has affected other facilities in the state capital, Maiduguri, including the post office and a teaching hospital. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu's office said, telling people to evacuate the worst-hit areas. Floods in the northeast last month killed at least 49 people, while one in 2022 killed over 600.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Still to come, a new rideshare app connects drivers and passengers for long-distance travel. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, on Tuesday night, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will face off in their first debate. Join me, Vincent McCory, for an in-depth look at the debate and how each candidate might approach U.S.-Africa relations.
Ever heard the saying, you are what you eat? It's a powerful reminder of how our food choices impact our health. Recently, the idea of food as medicine has been overshadowed by cheap and convenient processed options. On this episode of Our Voices, we're diving back into everyday foods and exploring how they can actually help heal and boost our health. So get ready to fall in love all over again with whole and natural foods. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the leader of Tigray People's Liberation Front, Debretsion Gebre-Michael, is reporting previously undisclosed talks between his region and the leaders of Eritrea. Debretsion says the first round of talks between place about 6 months ago in Dubai. The governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea were allies during a deadly 2-year war in Tigray, Ethiopia, that killed thousands. Nigerians in northeastern Borno State are reeling on Wednesday after flood water from an overflowing Alau Dam on the Nganda River destroyed thousands of homes in Maiduguri, and emergency officials fear the situation could get worse. An aerial photo shows houses submerged in murky water. The United Nations Refugee Agency in Nigeria says it is the city's worst flooding in 30 years. And the Zimbabwe government is introducing fines of up to $5,000 for poor service in the country's telecommunications industry. Zimbabwe's ICT Minister Tatenda Mavitera says the government will levy fines per infringement for telecom companies and internet providers who fail to give reliable service. It's time for a technology report. In Africa 54, tech correspondent Paul Ndiho is here to tell us about user-friendly apps offering a hassle-free transportation solution. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Esther. 3 Ways, a technology firm based in Falls Church, Virginia, has developed a rideshare app called Commute. It connects drivers and passengers for long-distance travel and is currently being tested in Uganda and the Greater East African region. The app aims to make it easy for drivers to find passengers and vice versa, with a feature for on-the-spot booking and payments. To learn more, I'm joined by Stephen Ruasa, CEO of 3 Ways, the firm behind the ride-sharing app. Hello, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm very well. Tell us a little bit about our 3 Ways app.
Well, 3 Ways app is a very simple application. You can, I don't want to compare it to Uber, but since right, for instance, in Uganda, where they have Safeway, I think it's Safeway was one of those apps anyway. But basically, to paint a better picture, think of it that way, but this is for long distance. So just as people book planes, imagine booking, getting a taxi using the same approach. So you download the app, you register, the drivers are registered, the destinations are already published, and you enter where you want to go. A list of thoroughfare drivers lists and the time they're going, along with the available seats and the cost. So the idea here is to improve security, safety for the passengers, and also to improve the driver quality of life, because drivers normally wake up at midnight to, look for passengers. But imagine a driver with a smartphone is able to do all this the night before. By the time they wake up in the morning, they know exactly where to go, increasing the safety instead of driving aimlessly, which so far I would say is increasing a lot of accidents in Uganda.
How long have you been testing this app?
Well, fortunately, thank you for asking. Actually, the app we started before COVID. We started it, it was launched in 2019, and we started operating in Kampala. Basically, our focus was working with taxi drivers, really to find out where the gaps might have been in our design and how we can relate with them to be able that we provide the proper service. So, and COVID provided this opportunity. Given that everyone was not traveling, our app had that capability of tracking, which was critical for all types of illnesses. So we've been in operation since 2019.
When you've talked to some people who have used this app, what is it that they tell you?
One of the things they tell us is that the app is for convenience. The convenience is very much the critical point in terms of being able to ease of finding passengers, rather for drivers finding passengers, for passengers being able not to wait long waiting for a taxi. And the convenience, because within the app, when the driver posts the route, the passenger can actually tell the driver where to pick them up. And so as they're en route versus going to the taxi park in this regard or waiting on the road for long hours.
There are several other ride-sharing apps on the market. How different is yours from what's already on the market?
I think the difference with ours, we are actually leveraging the existing infrastructure. And what that infrastructure, we know that the taxi drivers know what they're doing. Others tend to come on board with the actual car. Ours is more of a software as a service. We are leaving actually the driver in the car seat, not only in driving, but also in managing their market, right? So, which is actually helping us because now we are in collaboration to come up with a offer for the tax. We're in collaboration with one of the service provider, internet service provider, phone providers. We are in collaboration to develop a bundle that really caters to taxi driver to support them in this environment, given their income versus, either how much I earn. So their service is best for that.
Very briefly, what's in it for you and the taxi owner?
Well, the taxi owner, this gives them a platform to manage. They can manage the entire fleet of their vehicle from the comfort of their home. Within us, I think not only are we really looking at money per se, but also looking to add value to the taxi driver, safety, security, and of course the quality of life for the taxi drivers, being able to book instead of waking up in the middle of the night. They drive when they're awake and being able to provide services.
Well, Stephen, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for affording me the opportunity.
That's today's Take Report. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Paul, for that report. Join Paul Ndiho each Wednesday for his technology report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.